people today. They could spend half their lives over 50. That's a lot of living. So it helps to have a wise friend and fierce defender in your corner. A friend like AARP. So your health lives longer.
This is just slow-mo karate?
Just slow-mo karate.
Your money lives longer.
I just bought that.
I just sold that.
And your happiness lives longer. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Join today.
Hello, my name is Teresa Collins, and I am an Executive Council member for AARP Illinois. AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan member organization, has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans for more than 60 years. AARP Illinois is proud to represent all those who are 50 plus in Illinois and our 1.7 million members. And we thank you for the opportunity to be your wise friend and fierce defender. Our mission is to enhance the quality of life for all as we age, leading positive social change and delivering value to members through advocacy, service, and information. At AARP, we know that staying fit is one of the pillars of healthy living, and we want to help you on your fitness journey. Physical activity can boost memory, improve thinking, and even lower dementia risk. It's not too late to start. AARP is proud to offer today's virtual event to start or continue you on your fitness journey. Have a wonderful class and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. So glad you made it. This is Eat for Life, Nourish Your Body and Brain, and I am Diane Butera. Thank you so much to AARP Illinois, Teresa Jones for making this happen, and for all the other folks that support us. This is pre-recorded. It's not live, but I try to show up for the recording. So if you want to put into the comment section where you're from and what you're hoping to take away from this presentation, I would love to hear from you. It really helps me be more effective as I present this information if I know what you're looking for. All right. I was going to title this Understanding Your Gut Microbiome, but I thought it might scare some people away. Because really now when we start talking about nutrition and health and what we eat, the foundation of this conversation now is the gut microbiome. It's a mouthful, isn't it? But the gut microbiome is going to be a very big foundation, a big topic that we're going to be using in this presentation today. I thought it was really fascinating that up until, oh gosh, maybe the last couple of years, gut microbiome was not something most of us were familiar with, wasn't a term we had been hearing. However, I don't know if you noticed, but the AARP Bulletin a few months ago, that was the featured article on the front page in color, the gut microbiome. So why is the gut microbiome so important? Well, I just want to give you just a little glimpse of where we're going here. Your gut microbiome, it's up to 5 pounds of microbes, which help determine everything from your heart health to your brain health, to how much you'll weigh, how long you'll live, how happy you are, how you're going to sleep tonight. But as we get older, that ecosystem of microbiomes, well, it gets older too. And decades of, let's maybe say, questionable food choices, lack of exercise, exposure to antibiotics, which of course kill off microbes, our microbiome gets weakened. And did you know that researchers, just by looking at the gut, they can determine whether a person is on the path to frailty? Kind of interesting. All right. The gut is our master controller of inflammation in the body. Weight gain, rising cholesterol, increased blood sugars, issues we associate with getting older are in many ways indications of our microbiomes becoming less and less healthy. But there's good news, because there's something we can do about it. In fact, we can pump the brakes, and these age-related conditions and issues might just go away. Might just, at least pumping the brakes, slowing things down so that we can stay healthier longer. All right, so what's going to happen in the next 90 minutes that we're together? We're going to move the slide so I can tell you about there you go, today's agenda. That's me at Crater Lake, by the way, if you're wondering where that was taken. It's just one of my favorite pictures. I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I think it's important for you to know who I am, who's this lady telling me, to make changes in my lifestyle. And I'm going to talk a little bit about me and why I love this topic. And then we're going to talk a lot about the gut microbiome, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how to feed your gut microbiome. Remember, that's the pumping of the brakes. I'm going to offer you some resources. And the Q&A I put up there because I'm hoping that I can be there. This is one of those topics that I find people have more questions for. So I'm going to find out when the recording is and show up so that you guys can ask me some questions. Really important, I think, that we can have some engagement here. I kind of miss that. All right, so let's just spotlight me for a second here. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I teach this. So, hey there. This is a topic near and dear to my heart because I have been on this path of figuring out what's happening with my health. I used to say that my favorite topic, the most important topic that I did webinars on was sleep. In fact, I said that until very recently. And now it's kind of like a chicken egg type of thing, because if we don't have a healthy microbiome, it's really hard to get good sleep. And I've said so many times, sleep is the number one pillar for good health. But if you have an unhealthy gut microbiome, it's hard to get good sleep, and vice versa. If you don't get good sleep, it's not good for your gut microbiome. So let's just say these are both really important topics. A little bit about me. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I watch those infomercials, and let's say it's for having beautiful skin, and I'm looking at this supermodel who's, aged a few years. Maybe she's my age, and I'm thinking, you always had nice looking skin. I don't think it's that product that you're selling. So I do want to say that my journey started a long time ago with this whole, what I'm putting into my belly. I used to be that person who ate fast food probably 5 times a week easily. I can tell you the menu for many fast food restaurants. My favorite food to eat still today are French fries. So I'm going to own up to that. But it took a number of years and exposing myself to more and more information, and then also getting cancer. I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer when I was 53. That was almost 15 years ago. Yeah, 15 years ago, actually, last month, I think, was my last treatment. Is that about right? So nice when you start forgetting those things, because you think you're never going to forget that. And as I had to go through this really tough health crisis, I learned a lot more about how do I stay healthy. One of the things that a brilliant man shared with me, he's a health professional. He says, cancer loves sugar, and so do I. So that was something to look at, right? I also want to say that a lot of what I'm going to present to you is about eating plant food. And no, I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan. I used to probably consume 70% of my food intake in animal protein. That doesn't happen anymore, and it's been a process. It's been a gradual process of maybe 10% now. I know that seems really odd for me to say, but I just started feeling better. It made more sense. But I do still eat animal protein. And for you vegetarians, I don't mean to offend you, but I feel like my body needs it and I still enjoy it. So anyway, moving on here, as I was more and more interested in healing my body, and then also in aging, I started to do more of a deep dive into what nutrition really means. And it was just fascinating to me. I am a person who I like to listen. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. And my purpose in showing up here is not to give you a lecture, not to tell you, oh, you got to start doing this or that. I'm a firm believer in that only by really honoring where we are, by being kind to ourselves, by not shaming ourselves, that we can actually make progress, right? Where in the world did we get the idea that if we make somebody feel bad, they'll do better, right? So this journey that I've been on and understanding more about how to help people make change has led me to the place where I think I just want to share the information from my heart with the intention that I really want you to feel better. And I hope that you feel worthy enough to make yourself feel better. And it's not I'm not a doctor, I'm not prescribing anything from you. And I know there are a lot of people out there who probably know more about this than I do. And I know there are a lot of you out there that have particular health conditions that I can't relate to, and I won't be able to cover all of them. And there are exceptions, and I just like, this is not a blanket presentation that, oh, I've got the cure-all for everybody. I do want to say that as somebody who really struggled with an addiction for many years, when I was 16, I started smoking cigarettes, smoked for 24 years, finally quit. And it wasn't by beating myself up. It was about really taking that hard look at my life and asking some tough questions and then giving some honest answers and then getting the support that I needed. I used hypnotherapy. I used every kind of little habit breaking tool I could find. But mostly I had to find a reason. And that's one of the things I want to highlight is we have to have a reason for making change. And unfortunately, the human condition is such that the number one reason that most people make change is to avoid pain. So unfortunately, that means that something really awful happens and they're like, oh, I never want to feel like that again. Or, I don't want to lose a leg, or I don't want to have part of my colon removed, or I want this cancer to go away. And then they decide to make a change. How about if we can make a change before anything drastic happens? I also know that speaking from my own experience, sometimes we don't see ourselves as worthy enough to make that change. I know there are a lot of narratives that we have. I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too stiff. It isn't going to work for me. But if you can't do it for yourself, do it for the people that love you. And I say that because when I quit smoking, I was the mom of 3 little girls, ages 8, 6, and 3. And I did it for them. Couldn't do it for myself, but I did it for them. I'm just sharing a little bit about me and where I'm coming from. I am not perfect. I love that song. I'm only human, doing the best I can. So don't put the blame on me. I don't know if you've heard that song, but I love that song. All right, so we're going to move on and tackle that agenda that we have today. I believe knowledge is power, and I'm hoping that you do too. So in this presentation, here's what I'm hoping that we can accomplish together. It's a big a bite here, pun intended, but we're going to do the best we can to understand what it is that is causing us to not feel well, how we can feel better, and how it relates to our nutrition and our lifestyle. And again, we're going to talk a lot about the gut microbiome. Okay, we're going to move on here. Food is really fun, right? I love to eat, but really, truly, the reason we eat is for nourishment. We have to have nutrition for our body or else we will perish. But it's not so much the energy that we receive the food, but how it is absorbed. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, the absorption process. I think a lot of you guys know it, a lot happens in the colon. But it's not just about, hey, I ate some good food, so why don't I feel better? Let's move on. So here's a picture that shows your gut and a little bit of the digestive system. So, you chew, you swallow, food goes down the esophagus, goes into the stomach. There's some enzymes and some acids that work on that. And then it goes into the intestines, and it's really the large intestines. This is it, guys. This is where it's happening, in the very beginning of the large intestines, where all those microbiomes are doing their good work. And it's really important that we understand that those microbiomes, those bacteria, did you know that we are about, 85% bacteria? I know it's weird, but we are. And that most of those bacteria are healthy bacteria. I don't know what happened with poor bacteria. It got such a bad rap, but there's a lot of really good bacteria out there. All right, so we're going to move on and we're going to watch, we're going to watch a little video. It's just 2 minutes, not long at all. And I really think this captures, I think some of us are visual learners, so this might help you. But I think this captures what the gut microbiome is. So we're going to hit the play button on this and
Research
watch.
shows that the
This
gut
recording.
microbiome affects a lot of how we experience our daily lives. Emotions, weight, brain functioning, even our food choices. But how does it work? The gut microbiome is a collection of trillions of microbes, or microscopic organisms. These microbes, like bacteria and fungi, live in your digestive tract, mostly in your large intestine. Digestion is just your body taking raw materials, food, and turning it into something it can use.
Nice crust.
Digestion makes glucose, which runs your brain and muscles. It also enables your body's messengers like hormones and neurotransmitters. Your digestive system is a factory for turning food into fuel, and your microbes are its workers. And what you get out of it depends a lot on the quality of what you put into it. Gut microbes have their own genes, which affect the way your human genes act. There are about 20 to 25,000 different human genes that make up your body. Sounds like a lot. But there are millions of different microbe genes inside of you that influence how your human genes act. In some studies, the microbiomes of healthy mice were transplanted into stressed mice. The stressed mice then showed fewer anxiety symptoms. Fruit flies with particular bacterial species in their microbiomes ate more protein. When researchers changed the flies' microbiomes, the flies ate more sugar. In one study, researchers found that many elite athletes have a group of bacteria that helps break down lactate and could help performance and recovery. When these bacteria were transplanted into mice, the mice's treadmill performance increased. And this is all great news, because you can't change your genes, but you can change your microbiome for the better. And one of the quickest ways to do that is through food. There are immeasurable other factors that influence your gut microbiome: where you live, sleep, exercise, stress. But what your body makes and what kind of microbes your gut has depend a lot on the food you eat. You can change your microbiome and potentially your daily experiences and long-term health through food. Recent technology makes it possible to test your gut microbiome at home to get a peek at what's living inside you. But is gut microbiome testing worth it? In the next episode, we'll take a look. For the Washington Post, I'm Mary Beth Albright.
All right, we can move to the next slide, Ben. Okay, well, we're not going to talk about testing. That's another whole big topic that I'm not really equipped to talk about right now. But hopefully what you got from that is to understand how important the gut microbiome is, that it's this ecosystem with all these different bacteria and fungi that are doing some really important work for us. And that it's pretty much what we're made up of, right? All right, next slide, please. So maybe you've heard the statement, your gut is your second brain. Sometimes people say stomach, but really it's your gut. We're really talking more about the intestinal tract. And why do we say that? Well, there's this connection via the vagus nerve. Read down there, the vagus nerve, that connects it's the communication between the brain and the gut. And it's going to carry a lot of information from your gut to your brain and affect how you feel, how you think, how you move throughout your day, whether you have mental health issues. And I'm not saying this is the explanation for everything, but sometimes what's happening in our gut is what's causing something like our depression. Okay? All right, we can move on. So there's this process called dysbiosis, and dysbiosis is when things are imbalanced. And what causes the imbalances? Unfortunately, antibiotics and other kinds of medication can cause that imbalance. As a mother, raising kids 30 some years ago, I had no idea that taking my kids to the doctor every time they had an earache and putting them on antibiotics was not helpful. Antibiotic use, and I think we are starting to hear about that, antibiotic use has its place, but the overuse of antibiotics has caused a lot of problems in people, and particularly in the gut, causing that imbalance. And then there's our diet. So eating food that doesn't really help us cultivate a healthy gut microbiome, food that actually might destroy the gut microbiome, that's a problem too. And we're going to talk about food a lot in a minute. All right. So I talked about dysbiosis, and that is the loss of harmony. So we lose that beneficial bacteria, then we get an overgrowth of bad bacteria. Some people have experienced H. pylori or candida, ulcers, and then we lose bacterial diversity. Diversity is a big word, the big D word, diversity. You're going to see more and more how important diversity is in this conversation. We have to have a diverse microbiome to be healthy. Unfortunately, eating the same food day in, day out is not going to give you a diverse microbiome. The rule of thumb is 30 different fruits and vegetables and plant food throughout the week. Don't shoot the messenger. I just want to provide some information for you. Sometimes I'm not really happy with what I find, and I've had to make some changes that I kind of went kicking and screaming with, but I do know I want to feel better, and I want to be around a long time to watch those beautiful grandchildren grow up. Okay, so we can move on here. Okay. Again, I am not telling you to stop eating your hamburgers or your steak or your chicken or your fish or whatever it is that you like to eat. But we have found that, and again, I've said this in other presentations, I like to present to you information that's actually comes from really robust, strong research, not just, hey, I Googled it on WebMD, or hey, I heard this from somebody, but what does the evidence show us? Hundreds, thousands of studies, what does it show us? It shows us that diets high in animal protein and processed foods tend to feed the inflammatory process, inflammatory producing bacteria, which is not good. It starves the good bacteria. And unfortunately, in this country, 32% of our diet comes from animal food, 57% from processed food, and only 11% from whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts. A long while ago, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, there was a book that came out that I thought was pretty powerful. It was called The End of Overeating. The End of Overeating, America's Obsession with Fat, Sugar, and Salt. And I read it because it was written by the same man, David Kessler, who used to be head of the Food and Drug Administration, who was the whistleblower when it came to the tobacco industry. He was the guy that said, hey, the tobacco industry is not only producing something that's killing people, but they're actually putting additives into the cigarettes that make them more addictive. Yeah, over 100 different chemicals, ingredients that were added into your cigarette, my cigarette, that made the cigarette more addictive, which that really made me mad. So, wow, they're trying to kill me. That's why, even though they were putting, hundreds of thousands into getting kids not to smoke, they knew that once they got you to smoke, they got you hooked. So this book, back to the book, The End of Overeating, America's Obsession with Fat, Sugar, and Salt, it kind of had that same reaction for me, where I got kind of mad that millions, hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on figuring out how to keep us eating a bag of Cheetos, or how to keep us eating the package of Oreo cookies. The right combination of fat, sugar, and salt. We never feel sated, meaning we never feel full. Can you eat your weight in carrots? I can't. but I could eat my weight in French fries, or do a pretty good job at it. So back to the end of overeating and the research that's gone into it. So I think it's time we say no more. You know, you're brainwashing me, you're killing me, you're poisoning me with processed food. I call it crap, commercially reproduced artificial products. I eat it sometimes, but I really try to limit as and the more I eat of the good stuff, the less I want of the bad stuff. All right, so we can go forward about here. You guys probably know about sugar and flour. So it's processed, doesn't have any fiber in it, not so great for us, causes a host of problems, including diabetes, cancer. Yeah, I don't need to go on and on, but it's important that we start to look at the quality of the food that we're putting into our bodies. One of the problems with the flour and the sugar is they're rapidly absorbed into the small intestines, and then this quick absorption, it reduces our gut microbial diversity. And again, we want diversity. Okay, we can move forward. So you probably heard of probiotics, and I'm sure you've heard of fiber, but have you heard of prebiotics? Well, probiotics are your healthy gut bacteria. Prebiotics are the food that enable them to thrive. So you can take probiotics to help with your gut bacteria, but if you got to take those prebiotics first. Prebiotics are your healthy food. It's your plant food. And also fiber is a prebiotic, and it's absolutely essential. All right. In addition, I want to talk to you about something called short chain fatty acids. We can move on here. Short chain fatty acids. So they are a dominant driver of gut health, and they benefit the entire body. And they are the dominant driver of gut health, so important that we found that if we don't have an abundance of the short chain fatty acids, we have something called leaky gut. Dietary fiber is the part of the food that bacteria ferments to create short chain fatty acids, SCFA. Dietary fiber. It's the part of the food that bacteria ferment to create short chain fatty acids. So of all those words up there, those are the ones that I would try best to remember. We can move on from here. Okay, well, here's the bad news. Things to avoid. Well, let's go down the list. Well, we've talked about having a diversity, the big D word. We've talked about probiotics. Physical exercise, very important for gut health. Stress, reducing stress, getting enough sleep. Pretty sure we all know about smoking. We talked about antibiotic. Here's what I thought was interesting. It says drinking too much. How much is too much? Well, the research is starting to show us, and believe me, I was not happy to learn this, not happy at all, that too much is more than one alcoholic drink a week. Too much. So if you're interested in exploring that a little bit further, there's a great book out there called The Naked Brain. There are a lot of podcasts out there. It's kind of one of those things that I tried to avoid learning because I really didn't want to know, because I really enjoy red wine. I love going wine tasting. I won't go further into that, but it is one of the most damaging things we can do to our bodies is alcohol, because of what the substance that's in alcohol and what it does to us. And that includes red wine, folks. All right. Dairy is one of those things that I tend to want to be cautious about, because I know a lot of people consume dairy, and I personally am not taking dairy out of my diet, But there are some problems with dairy. And I think the quality of your dairy is really important. You do want the hormone-free, you do want organic, and you don't want to overdo it. I wouldn't try to get all my protein from dairy, by the way. Well, there's my French fries there, fried foods, and my son-in-law's favorite fast food place is Chick-fil-A. Gluten. I want to talk about gluten for a second here. Gluten gets such a bad rap. So why does gluten get such a bad rap? People say, oh, I'm gluten intolerant. And really, most likely they're gluten sensitive. I'm not talking about people with celiac disease. But what is it about the gluten that causes problems for people? Well, most likely it's the pesticides that went into the wheat that are causing the problem, as opposed to the gluten itself. I think it's really interesting that people can go to some place like Italy and eat their way through Italy, having pasta and pizza and not have any stomach issues. They don't use the same degree of pesticides that we do here in the United States. Red meat, there's an ingredient, a chemical in red meat that is carcinogenic. And some of the worst food that we can eat would be deli products, processed deli products, bacon. Love bacon. Oh my gosh. Even living near a place where they're cooking bacon, the fumes that are released, not good for our health. Artificial sweeteners. I used to live on diet drinks, and finally decided to read a little bit more about it and understand that it takes my gut a couple of weeks to repair the damage from one diet drink. A couple of weeks to repair the damage from one diet drink. When they say knowledge is power, they didn't say it was also going to be a bummer sometimes, right? Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about protein, because it is true that as we age, we need more protein. Mostly because, how we digest it, that we're losing muscle mass, but we do need more protein. So if you're saying, hey, Diane, you're telling me to eat less animal protein, taking away my red meat, and you're telling me to eat plant food, how am I going to get my protein? Well, it's really not that hard to do. You can eat a combination of foods throughout the day that will help you get enough protein. Your legumes, your beans, your nuts, if you don't like tofu, that's okay. I don't really like tofu that much either, but I like tempeh. Tempeh might be an option for you. But there are also a lot of your greens. Oh, collard greens. Collard greens are packed with protein. If you like collard greens, yes, have a couple of cups of collard greens each week, or every third day or something. Remember, we want diversity, so you want to just not just have collard greens. Let me see what else I can think of that's really good in protein. Hemp seeds. I love hemp seeds. Hemp seeds are really good. And I like to make this little oat balls with hemp seeds and oats, raw oats, and nut butter and dates. Oh, they're delicious. And roll it in coconut. If you email me, I will send you the recipe for that. They're delicious. My 2-year-old grandson loves them. Stick them in the freezer so they last longer. So hemp seeds are really awesome. The other thing I'll mention later is sprouting some seeds, but I'm going to talk to you about when we get to the topic of sulforaphanes. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So why do we want to pay attention to what we eat and why it will make us feel better? Well, we know it's going to boost our metabolism. So it's going to help you lose weight. It's going to balance our hormones. Hormones are really important. We have hormones that neurotransmitters that tell us how good we're going to feel or affect how good we're going to feel. Inflammation. So many of us have autoimmune diseases or some type of inflammation. And a lot of that is because of the food that we eat. I know that there is a really popular diet out there. I think it's called the Whole30. Don't quote me on that. But it's about going on an anti-inflammatory diet. I want to say that trying something like that for 30 days isn't really going to give you, I think, the proof that you need. I believe that you've got to do at least 6 months of changing how you eat to really be able to realize how powerful this information is and how you're going to feel better. I know 6 months seems like a long time, but hey, 6 months will go by and one way or the other. So why not use it to your advantage to do some experimenting on yourself. And then, of course, improving immunity, which I'm all for that. I have 4 grandchildren under the age of 5 and under, and they love to share their germs with me. My immune system needs a boost. I'm just getting over my 2nd cold this year, and I don't usually get colds, but now that I have little ones in my life, well, they like to share, and I do love them. All right, we can move forward. F goals. Okay, now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty here, talking about food. I'm not a big fan of putting up notes on my refrigerator to help me improve my life. I tend to just ignore them after a while. They're part of the scenery. I don't really pay attention. But on my refrigerator, I do have F goals written. And first, I'm going to tell you what F goals are, and then I'll tell you how I use this little memo here. So F goals, that's a little acronym for you. The F stands for fruits and fermented food. Healthy fermented food, low sugar fermented food. Kombucha is fermented. They do put some sugar in it, so I wouldn't overdo it with kombucha. Like, oh, Diane said, drink my kombucha. Don't have 2 bottles every day, maybe a third of a bottle. Healthy fermented foods would be sauerkraut and kimchi. Not a fan of kimchi. I don't like spicy food. If you've never heard about it before, it's a type of sauerkraut that has lots of spices. It's very popular in Korean food. Sauerkraut, I found ways to eat sauerkraut that helps me really enjoy it. I don't dislike it. I do like it warm, but I love that Costco has that big jar of sauerkraut, and I put it in my fridge, and I just put it in the front of the fridge and take a couple bites. Really good for you. Good news, sourdough bread is fermented. Don't eat your weight in sourdough bread, but if you're going to eat bread, a whole grain sourdough bread, that is an F goal. Good for your microbiome. Next is greens and grains. So greens, greens, spinach, kale, broccoli, mustard greens, lettuces. Grains are things like your grains would be wild rice, barley, quinoa. Those would be the grains. By the way, when it comes to grains, it's kind of interesting now what they're doing with pastas and what you can find to eat. I know my husband likes this product called, well, it's a grain. Well, it's not a grain. It's actually made from chickpeas. It's called lupin, and it's made from chickpeas, and he's a big fan of that. So you might want to look up that lupin. And then we need our omega-rich nuts and seeds. They are high in calories, so you'd have to eat, how many nuts would you have to eat? 200 almonds to get enough protein for your day. And if you're wondering how much protein, I'll pause right here and talk about how much protein, what your protein needs are. It's really based on your age, your gender, your sex, and your weight. So for instance, let's just take a 70-year-old woman who weighs 160 pounds. It's around 50 grams of protein, and you can Google it. How do you get 50 grams of protein, minimizing the animal protein, and have some fun with that. Aromatics, oh, they make food interesting. We don't want our food to be boring. I'm a cook. I love to cook. I'll confess right now that some of this is kind of easy for me because it's my opportunity to be creative. I do not paint. I do not sew. I do not draw. It's cooking that's my creative outlet. And so aromatics are what makes food exciting. So your aromatics are things like onions and garlic and leeks, and your spices, your seasoning. I love herbs de Provence. I like cooking Thai food using kaffir lime leaves, lemongrass. But depending on where you live, your part of the country, I'm sure there are aromatics that are particularly important to you that make your food taste really good. And so you get to be creative with that, because aromatics are good for your gut microbiome diversity. And then there's legumes. Legumes are things like your lentils and peas, different beans are your legumes. And boy, you can have a lot of fun with legumes. I know it just is like, come on, Diane, what are you trying to sell here? But and I never thought that I wanted to eat those foods. I thought, oh no, they just make me gassy. They make me bloated. They're high in calories. Not true. They're actually fabulous. One of the things I love to do is make a coconut curry soup that's real thick, and then I add in a ton of spinach, and oh my gosh, just the smell of it. It's so aromatic and wonderful. I make Brazilian black beans made with oranges and ginger, orange juice, and other spices. Wonderful. All right, and then there, last but not least, the S. I was remiss. I should have put sulforaphane and shrooms for the S's. So if you're going to copy this or make your own list, by the way, you can watch this recording again and again. You don't have to worry about taking notes. But if you do put this up, add shrooms, SHROOMS. That's to make mushrooms start with an S. Sulforaphanes and shrooms. Sulforaphanes are particular cruciferous vegetables like cabbage and broccoli. There's a whole list of them. Mushrooms are so good for our health. And by the way, I have a favorite book for cooking, for recipes, and it's based on a book that I read by a gastroenterologist who talks about the gut microbiome. His name is Dr. Bulsiewicz. I could say Dr. B, Dr. Bulsiewicz. But in this book, he talks about using broccoli sprouts. He said, if you're only going to eat one food from this conversation, put broccoli sprouts on everything you can. You can put it on your salad, you can put it on your soup, you can put it in your casseroles. They're really easy to do. I ordered them. They're easy to sprout on your windowsill. Then you put them in the fridge, and they're pretty tasty, but they are cancer fighting. They are so good for the inflammatory system, for digestion. So I want to give a big shout out for broccoli sprouts. Very easy to do, those broccoli sprouts. All right, and shrooms. I did not grow up liking mushrooms. I can vividly remember my mom making Salisbury steak with a gravy made from cream of mushroom soup. I have to tell you, my dad didn't eat any spices. He didn't eat onions or garlic, so food was pretty bland in our house. And my mom didn't like pasta, so there were a lot of things. And we never had pizza in my house. But I'm going off track. The mushroom thing. So she used to make gravy with cream of mushroom soup. And if you've ever eaten it, it has this little tiny, tiny, minuscule pieces of mushroom. And I can vividly remember picking out all those little tiny pieces of mushroom because I like the gravy. I just didn't like the mushrooms. And now today, I love mushrooms. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's very interesting how we can cultivate our taste for certain foods that we thought we would never eat. I still will never eat horseradish. I can promise you that will never make it onto my tongue. But many foods that I thought I wouldn't eat that I now actually really love today. And if you have a good recipe for mustard greens, I'd love to hear from you. Brussels sprouts are another really good one for us. Excellent. But the goal here is to 30 different grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, sulforaphanes throughout the week. So I don't want you just to pick one menu and then repeat it every day of the week. You have to have that diversity so that you have the diversity in your gut microbiome. Okay? All right. Let's see. We can move on here. So do you remember in the beginning I was talking about how the reason that I offer these presentations and what I want to have as the end goal. And the end goal for me is to help you feel better, to help you heal, to help you have a more active life, to help you with any chronic issues that you might have with your health. And I'm not saying that I'm not a doctor. I don't write prescriptions, but I do know there are some really basic things that we can all do that will help us feel better. But the problem is, you guys know that too. You guys, that's not the problem. The problem is we all know that, but the real problem is that what are we going to do about it? So we have all this information, and we know that we have all these choices, and we know where to get great food, and we know what's good for us, and we know we should cut down on drinking, and we shouldn't smoke, and that fried foods aren't good for us, and then we need to get out and move, and we need to get better sleep, and we need to connect to people because social connection is really important, and we need to get out and breathe some fresh air. We know all this, right? How do we make it happen? How do we make it happen? Certainly not by shaming ourselves, certainly not by making ourselves feel bad, certainly not by saying, well, I've got these million and one things to do. I give up. I'm not going to do any of them. It's by making small changes. Small changes. It's called atomic habits. And if you didn't get to see it, I know the recordings are still there. And if you need that, I'm going to give you my email at the end, but I want you to email me and I will send you the link. Or, you know what, actually, I think you can just go into AARP Illinois, and there's a webinar called Kickstart Your Health. I also did another one for a different venue, and I talked more about kickstarting your health with and added chronic disease into that. So if you want to dive deeper into how you make the changes, great that you gave me this information, but now you're just going to go off, and I'm here with this a whole bunch of information. I'm not so sure what to do with it. Then watching that Kickstart Your Health, or picking up that book, Atomic Habits, or anything else that really talks about how we make change in our lives. I will say that one of the most effective things that we can do if we want to make change with what we consume, what we ingest, is to keep a food diary. I know, so boring, but it's very powerful. And maybe you have it on a notepad on your refrigerator where you are keeping track, or maybe you have some code that you use that you want to use to keep track. But it's very powerful to write down what we're eating. I know that for me, there are a lot of things that just accidentally slip into my mouth on a frequent basis. And every once in a while I'll think, oh, you didn't just eat da 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 da. Remember that sample you had at Costco, or those 4 samples you had at Costco, and then that taste of this and that bite of that and that little snack of this and that little snack of that. So when I start making a mental note throughout the day of what actually goes into my mouth, that's really helpful. But even more helpful is to keep a food diary. And I don't know if you have any apps, but there's one, a fitness app that's really easy to use, where it's a food tracker. It just takes a little bit of learning. It's not that challenging to learn how to use it, but it's really helpful for helping us understand what we're actually ingesting, what we're actually putting into our bodies. One of the things that we can do in approaching changing our diet, changing our nutrition, changing our gut microbiome, instead of thinking about, okay, well, I'm not supposed to have wine, and I'm not supposed to have French fries, and I'm not supposed to stop at Burger King, and I'm not supposed to have those cookies, and I'm not supposed to. Don't think about what you can't have. Think about adding in things that are going to help you. It's pretty tough. I think it's pretty challenging if you are thinking about that pizza, but you first eat a big salad, or you have some a big grain bowl or something really healthy. There's not as much room to eat that whole pizza. So maybe you still love the pizza, but maybe you just have a slice of pizza. But by adding in, you're going to eat less of what's not good for us. And by adding in, you're going to start to cultivate a palate, a taste for food that is good for us. I would love for you guys in the chat, if you don't mind, putting in some of your favorite foods that fit into this description of cultivating a healthy gut microbiome. If you have a particular food that you or recipe, please feel free to put something in there. I love hearing from you, and other people will appreciate it. And then also emailing me would be really awesome. All right, so the goal is to add in what we can. We go back to those F goals. It's on our refrigerator. And when we open up the fridge, before we open up the fridge, we're like, okay, I got to satisfy some of these F goals first. So when I open up my fridge and I see, I might see something like cottage cheese, and I'll see something like, what else? Some yogurt and maybe some really yummy cheeses. And I might see certain things that aren't in the F goals. I'll think, oh, none of those are my F goals. How do I get my F goals? Well, let's see. I do want that cottage cheese. I could have it with some fresh pineapple, and I'll sprinkle some seeds on top. And then I hit some of those F goals. Sometimes I do really well, and I don't even have things that aren't on the F goals, but I don't beat myself up about it. I do the best I can, and it varies day to day, but always looking at what can I get off that list of F goals, because I know that's what's going to really help me with that healthy gut microbiome. And I do want to feel better, and I do want to be around a long time. The other point that I want to stop and pause on is be prepared and have a plan. That's part of making changes. That's part of having those atomic habits, those little habits that make big changes. For instance, let's say you're going out to dinner and you're going to a pizza place and you love pizza, and you have every intention of, well, I'll get the salad and maybe just a slice of veggie pizza. If you go there on an empty stomach and people put that big pizza pie in front of you that maybe has sausage and pepperoni that you love, maybe that plan might go awry. So how do you set yourself up to succeed? Maybe you make yourself a really yummy salad before you go. You don't feel like doing that. I get it. Don't worry about it. But maybe you have an apple. Slice up an apple and eat it with some nut butter. Whatever rocks your world, whatever will get you excited about, yeah, I'm going to have that first. Don't worry about ruining your appetite, because if you did something that was really good for your gut microbiome, you're on the right track. Yeah? Okay. So also having a plan could mean something like maybe you're around people who don't subscribe to a healthy gut microbiome. That's not their goal. Maybe you bring to the potluck a dish that you love that's going to be really satisfying, and you might even introduce people to something that they might enjoy. So thinking things through, having a plan. When I leave the house, I seldom leave the house without a lunch bag. Even if I think I'm only going to be gone, that's that cold I was talking about. Even if I think I'm only going to be gone an hour, 2 hours, what I will do is I will still pack something in there. Maybe I'll slice up an apple. Maybe I'll take some roasted vegetables. I love roasted carrots. Roasted carrots, a little olive oil, herbs de Provence, salt and pepper. I like to roast them till they're almost crispy. I know it seems like a weird snack, but I love roasted carrots. They do have sugar in them, so that satisfies the sugar craving. Snap peas. There's all different things. You can get creative. And if you have grab-and-go bags made for yourself, much easier. Some people like to have things like breakfast oats. They make them the night before, really simple. They grab that mason jar. I can eat them cold. I love oats. I love horse food, anything that's you have to really chew. And by the way, chewing is really good for us. It's good for our jaws. It's good for our breathing. But be sure you chew your food as much as you can and not be in a rush. Being in a rush to eat your food is not going to help your gut microbiome. So the part about eating healthy, it starts with before you even put that food in your mouth. Slowing down, smelling the food, creating the right ambiance, not feeling stressed, and then chewing that food well. All right, so so also having people in your life that support your healthy eating so you can trade recipes. And if you don't like to cook, a lot of us don't like to cook in there. And, I might have been losing you. It's like, I don't have the time, girlfriend, to do all this cooking, or I don't like cooking. I have several friends who really dislike cooking. Maybe you do a trade with someone. Maybe you could be, hey, if you make me 2 meals a week, I'll come and clean your house. Well, I don't like cleaning house either. If you make me 2 meals a week, I'll help you. I'll sew this for you. or I'll help you with this or that. You do some trading, do some trades. There's also those, you can also subscribe to those meal plans. There's some that are pretty healthy. I don't know which ones they are, but I know I have family members who have used some of those that really do provide you with healthy meals. They come in a bag, and they're pretty easy to prepare. I was thinking of something else I wanted to tell you about preparing. Oh, bars. I want to talk about bars. I am not a fan of bars. I know a lot of people like bars. I'm not a fan of them. To me, they fall in the category of processed foods. I know there are some that are not so processed, but I'd like to see you making your own. And they're really not that hard to make. And then you can really pack them full of the ethical foods. You can put in the nut butter, you can put in the hemp seeds, you can put in the coconut, you can put in the fruits, and make it really healthy for yourself. All right. And the raw oats. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Okay, a little bit more about my thoughts about how to succeed. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know your circumstances. We all live in different environments, different parts of the country, have different living situations. So we have to make it work for us. But some things that you can do to make it work for you is learn how to use those aromatics. It might be kind of fun to explore. What can you do with lemongrass? What can you do with fresh ginger? Have a prep day. Yeah, having that plan, have a prep day. Maybe it's Sunday afternoon, Saturday morning, something that fits into your schedule. Maybe you do it with somebody else. Connect with people who have similar goals. Maybe every week you have a friend that you meet up with, and it's your prep day, and they make half of the recipes and you make the other half, and then you've got some good basics to work with, like having a pot of really good beans or something, quinoa. And by the way, when I make these things, I never make just plain quinoa. I was like, that is so boring. So there are a lot of fun ways to dress up these different types of foods. Yes, we have to be patient. We have to really pay attention, maybe even keep a little journal about how you're feeling, how you're sleeping, how you're interacting with people, how your gut feels. And I want you to make it fun, make it enjoyable for you. I'm not sure how that is for you. I think that's a real honest conversation to have with yourself about how are you going to make this work for you? Why do you want to make it work for you? And it could be a conversation that takes place for a while, but if you ever want to meet and talk, I'm happy to have a conversation with you by phone. As I said, I really want to support you. You can always send me an email as well. All right, so moving forward here. There's a few books that I like, and there are many out there. I'm not saying that these are the only books out there, but a couple of them that I love. One is called Fiber Fueled, and that's Dr. B, Dr. Bulsiewicz, which you can see why I just call him Dr. B. I also put a YouTube link in there. And again, you guys can go back and watch this so that you can actually take your time taking screenshots or writing things down. So don't have to be rushing for a pencil and paper here. Dr. B has a cookbook, a fiber-fueled cookbook that I love. He has a recipe in there called biome broth, and I want to pause for this recipe because I think it's fabulous. I do not put the kombu in it. Kombu, Kombu. Kombu is seaweed. I don't like the taste of seaweed, so I eliminate it, but I put everything else in it. So I'll make this biome broth. And in the morning, I'll put it in a pot and heat it up and then sip it throughout the day. Sometimes I just put it in my little travel mug, and it's really tasty. It's so nourishing. Eat it with a piece of sourdough bread. Oh my gosh, you are so nurturing your body and nourishing your body. So the biome broth, you might want to look up that recipe. It's one of my staples. Another book, another person I recommended, and typically I recommend people because I like their personalities, how they come across, and I really think, and Dr. Bulsiewicz, by the way, is that gastroenterologist, and Dr. Greger, he's so funny, And his book is How Not to Die. And he goes through all the chronic diseases that we suffer from as we get older and talks about how plant food addresses those diseases and how we can actually cure many of these diseases, or at least reduce the symptoms, by eating a plant-based diet. And he has a cookbook also. And he has a book called How Not to Diet. I like that one, How Not to Diet. And then there's Amy Chaplin. I added this book in here because I think she's a really good resource for people who are just starting out with this whole idea of, hey, cooking and how to have a kitchen that's going to support a plant-based program. So she has a lot of conversation in there about what should be in your pantry, what kitchen tools you need, what you should have in your refrigerator. Because I know for myself, one of the reasons I don't cook certain foods is because I don't have those foods available easily. Like Thai food, I often will go out to eat Thai food because I don't have lemongrass in my fruit bin every week, and they don't even have it at Safeway. So I have to really go out of my way to get that. But I really like that she gives you some tips and tools. All right, we can go to the next slide. So good research out of Cleveland Clinic. If you want to read more about the gut microbiome and this thing, short chain fatty acid, because that really was the building block there that's going to help us be healthy. So I have those links in there. And let's go to the next one. Oh, Netflix has a good show. You Are What You Eat. It's and you know, full disclaimer, they are talking about converting to a plant-based diet. But I think the show's kind of cool because what they did was they took some twins and they had them eat very different diets, and then they showed the outcome after the 4-part documentary of what one way of eating was compared to another way of eating, and you can probably guess what the outcome was. And you might want to take a look at that. You know, not everybody changes the way they eat, avoids eating animal products strictly because of changing their gut microbiome. A lot of younger people today are really concerned about things like climate change, how we treat our animals, safety, food safety, and health. So I just want to add that that's also a concern for people, and maybe that's something that interests you as well. There are a lot of other good documentaries that they're pretty eye-opening, jaw-dropping. Forks Over Knives is another one. Super Size Me is another one, but there's a lot of them out there, and you can take your pick. I love podcasts. I love podcasts. There are a growing number of podcasts that are strictly devoted to the gut. I was really surprised. I did a little Google search of the best podcasts on the gut microbiome, and now there's a whole score of podcasts strictly about your gut. And so you might want to look those up. My favorite would be one called, what is it? The gut. Oh, it's escaping me right now. But there's one about food science, and there was another one. Let's see. Let's fast forward to the next one. Maybe I even included them. Did I read? Oh, nope, I didn't. Yeah. So again, put your favorite fiber-fueled dish into the chat. Love to know what you're cooking in your kitchen. Now we can move forward here. A little review here. We now know that our gut microbiome, this ecosystem, if you want to call it that, determines our health. What's in the gut microbiome? And it can be changed. That's the good news. We can pump the brake on it. We can change it completely. That plant fiber is incredibly important because it produces something called short chain fatty acids, and that is our manna. Manna means it's the golden nectar. It is what we need for health. Short chain fatty acids. And by the way, exercise really helps with the production of short-chain fatty acids too. In order to have what's necessary for body and brain health, we need diversity, that D word. We need 30 of the different F goals that we talked about. We can get all this information, we have all these resources, but if we don't know how to implement them into our lives, to us particularly, like maybe we're housebound, we get our meals delivered, maybe we live alone, maybe we have a particular health concern, we have to figure out what's going to help us. So making those small changes that we can make without shaming ourselves, with the goal of believing that we're worth it. That's what I'd like to see for all of us. Small changes making big results. There's a great AARP brain health resource because this is the executive functioning power here. And again, we say that our gut is our second brain. So if you want to read more about brain health, I put a resource in there for you. All right, and you can go on. I'd love to stay connected with you. I know we're far away. I'm in Oregon. I don't know where you guys are, but maybe I'll get to see that in the chat. I have a Facebook page. I post tons of things in there for you, as well as what webinars I'm doing. The YouTube has videos, so there might be something like breathing, how to do a really short called the cyclic sigh breath to reduce stress. Even some things, gentle movements done in the chair. So take a look at that YouTube channel, all free for you. And then I do have a website, of course. And then let's go on. Oh, so I just wanted to pique your interest in some recipes. If you want to email me, so if you like asparagus, it's probably my favorite asparagus. I love asparagus and green beans. I really like vegetables. I'm lucky that I like vegetables. I haven't learned to like okra yet, but maybe you have a recipe for okra for me and I'll learn to like it. Okay, so there you go. A few recipes. Oh, black bean brownies. Okay, I made black bean brownies because I did not believe a brownie could taste good without using flour and using black beans instead. I thought, no way, no how. So I went ahead and made the black bean brownies, and because I love walnuts, I put walnuts in them. I think everything tastes better with nuts, particularly walnuts. So I made the black bean brownies. They are delicious. I love them. They're very good. And I also a friend provided me with another recipe for brownies using sweet potato, the purple sweet potato. Made those. They're absolutely delicious too. They were a little more work than the black bean brownies. So, but I love them. Put a little cacao nibs in there, a little crunch. But yeah, so if you want the recipes, let me know. Or you can just write them down. You probably can find them on the internet. Okay, well, hopefully, we're going to fast forward again to the next slide. I'll hear from you. I would love to hear from you. There's my email. Love to be connected to you. Hopefully, we'll get to see each other when this does air. Again, it's pre-recorded, so I have to show up, and Ben will send me the link, and I'll come to the recording time so that I can see what questions or comments or recipes that you're adding into this webinar. All right, and last but not least, I want to say thank you. We can move forward, Ben. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for however you wanted to participate. It is such an honor to be on a healing journey with you. And I always like to say to people, it's really hard to take care of other people. Many of us are caregivers. Many of us love to be helpers. It's very hard to pour from an empty cup. So fill your cup first. Be well until we meet again. Take care, everybody.